Hey everybody, Tom here, and today I'm not going to show you how to set up or to play Teotihuacan, but in this video instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make some boxes that I made in order to store this game a little bit better. So this game is crazy because it has so many tokens of so many shapes and sizes that I have different storage containers all over the place, but I found myself needing and wanting to make some other things, these things down here, to help store them. And so what I'm going to do in this video is, first of all, I'm going to give you an overview of these three different kinds of boxes that I've created to help the storage of this game. And then I'm going to show you how to make all three of these kinds of boxes. So this video is kind of long and it's going to mostly be in three segments after I kind of show stuff off. But what I'll do is I will put timestamps in this video as I'm showing off these boxes if you want to jump to one box or the other to learn how to make it. But just a couple of things before I show these off. First of all, if you would like the PDFs or it's just one PDF, if you want to download the file that has all of these templates, there's a link in the description of this video. It is a 7-page document, so you can pick and choose whatever things you want to print, obviously. But also, if you are interested in seeing more of my designs, I have a link in the description of this video for a website I've thrown together that just has a bunch of other designs for different games that I've created that I like. So, anyway, with that said, let's get to it. So, three main kinds of boxes here. Let's go ahead and take them out. Everything else I managed to fit in kind of other standard ways. So, first things first. This is a box for the temple tiles here. And so if you see here, it's two different pieces, but they're pretty much the exact same shape. But we can lift this lid off and it's going to store the temple pieces just like this so that you can just draw straight out of this box while you're playing the game. And it sets up and stores really easily. But the thing that I'm kind of most excited about with this box is there's a setup guide on your starting tiles on the temple. In the rule book, the pictures that they use are not the most clear. And so I put a lid here, or I put a design on the lid so that you can look and see where to place tiles at the very beginning of the game. So that is the first box that I'm going to be creating, and that's just going to happen in just a second. The second box I'm going to be creating is this small tile box. It's very similar to other tile boxes that I've designed, in case you are familiar with those. But basically, we can open this thing up, and here we can even pop that out. And it's going to have three different kinds of tiles here. They're the ones I couldn't fit in any of the Plano boxes. This will hold the royal tiles, the technology tiles, and the player order tokens. So that is the second box that I'm going to be creating. And again, I have a timestamp for whenever that thing's going to start. And the other thing is, I haven't made the fourth one yet. I'm going to in this video. But I've made these player boxes that hold the player components. And then I've also tried to design it because it's going to double as a player aid. And so basically these boxes just open up like this. And they store the dice and the discs and let's take some stuff out. They're going to hold the 5 times thingy and your player color if you want to keep using it, even though this box will kind of work in that way as well. Oops. But basically, I designed this thing so that especially if you're learning the game, you can open it up and just have it. Man, I have pieces rolling all over. You could just have it sitting right next to you in your play area and put your pieces right next to it, and could be pretty fun and exciting like that. So I have a turn summary, basically what you can do on your turn with some reminders about the cocoa that you're going to pay. And then down here I have a reminder about eclipse scoring because it's a little bit intense, I have noticed as I played. So anyway, these are the things that we're going to be building, and I've shown you when I'm going to be building those items there. If you download the PDF, you're going to see probably that it's 7 pages. The first 2 pages are this box, the top and the bottom. The third page is for this box. This only takes 1 page. And then pages 4 through 7 are the other boxes here. And so if you want to, go ahead and pause this video, go download that, print the stuff, and then come back. We're going to start by building this box here. So before we make any of these boxes, you're going to need a couple of things. And first of all, you're going to need the stuff printed. So just to show you what I'm going to be making, I'm going to be making 3 different things in this video. I'm going to be making the bottom of this box here, but the template is exactly the same. Both the top and the bottom of this box are identical. I just made a few minor tweaks since this version. So I'm going to be remaking the bottom of this box. Again, the template is the exact same as the top. It's just that the art is different on the top. So I'm going to be making this one. This is page 2 in that document. But again, page 1 is made the same. And then here's page 3. So page 3 is going to be this box here. So I'm going to be making that. And then finally, I'm going to be making the yellow player box. This is, I don't know, page 6, I think. But yeah, so pages 4 through 7 down here. So to make these, you're going to want a couple of things. First of all, paper cutter is just nice for the initial cut, and I'm going to be discussing that in just a second. And then also, you're going to want some scissors. Now, I am mostly going to be using these normal scissors, and then there's just one moment where I like to use these scissors, but you just need scissors, no big deal. And then the other thing you're going to need or want is tape. Now, I have 2 different kinds of tape because I do a lot of these projects. This tape right here is called invisible tape. It is not so invisible, but this tape is like a matte finish, and it's really great anytime we're going to be taping on regular paper, just on the white paper, not on colored stuff. So I have this tape for those moments, and then I have, this is transparent tape. It's very see-through and kind of shiny. I always like to use this kind of tape anytime I'm taping on printed material or on colored paper. And so there's kind of a mixture of both of those in this. Obviously, you can use any tape you want. You're just going to need maybe a paper cutter, but definitely scissors and tape once you have stuff printed out. So the very first thing I'm going to do as we get started is I'm going to go ahead. All of these images have just a basic outline shape that needs to get cut out. And so I'm going to not do that on camera because there's a tripod right here, and using the paper cutter with the tripod right here is kind of a nightmare. But for every single one of these designs, I'm going to go ahead and just cut around the outside of the shape so that I don't have to do that later on. And so that is what I'm going to do first. I will be right back after I have those things cut out. Alright, we are back. So hopefully you've trimmed around the outside. Now, with most of my designs, so with all the designs, there's a black border because I show you where to cut. But with this design in particular, I should have pointed this out. When you're trimming it, try to make sure that you trim just inside the black line. Everything around the outside of this is froofy. It's like, it doesn't matter if we have it there, and I don't know, that's not the right word, but I just trimmed on the inside of the black line. You don't want any black line on the border showing for this particular design. So just make sure you do that. Once you get the outside cut, what you're going to see is you're going to see a bunch of dotted lines and solid lines. Dotted lines are to cut, solid lines are to fold. We're going to do all of our cuts first. And you're going to see some of these pieces have a small X. That's just me acknowledging to you that as you are cutting on the dotted line, that those pieces are going to come off. So we're going to go ahead and do that like this. Oh, and again, just in case it's not clear, the top part is the exact same design. It just has a lot more artwork on it. So I'm just going to do this the one time. No need to do it twice. And this design is very similar to my Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth design. And so if by chance you saw or made that one, this is pretty much using that same template. Yeah, so let's go ahead and make this cut here. And then I see some dotted lines here. I'm going to go ahead and cut those while we're at it. Like that. Obviously, the order that we're cutting things, it really doesn't matter. This is the second time I've done this on video because I really messed up the first time. There's a tripod right here again, and it makes things a little bit awkward, and I really messed up. All right, in fact, speaking of mess ups, it's not a bad idea when doing these to just cut out or just print out on regular paper and using black and white instead of color, just to do a practice run. That's something that, I mean, when I'm designing things, that's always how I print stuff to make sure that the measurements are right and that I know where I'm cutting and all that stuff. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just cut on all of the dotted lines. Okay, cool. Now, in a minute, we're going to be folding, but I do want to point a couple of things out. I make all of these designs in Microsoft Word, and so the measurements are precise. The problem with that is our cuts are not precise, and our folding will not be precise. So I have a couple of additional trimming cuts that I'm going to make, and I want to show you those now. So on these tabs on the bottom and on the top, we're just going to go ahead and cut at an angle like this. We're going to turn that rectangle into a trapezoid. It does not matter how dramatic the degrees are. I usually just estimate 45 degrees. And that's going to make things a little bit easier down the line. So just go ahead and trim those corners like that. Okay, now if you were to go ahead and fold this, you would be fine. But I've done this enough times to know where I get annoyed with some of my cuts and my folds. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just trim just a small amount. Oh, there's some tape stuck on my scissors. I'm going to trim just a small amount on the 4 corner rectangles. So right here on the long end, I'm just going to go ahead and trim that. I'm going to do that on all 4 corners on the long edges of those rectangles. We're going to be folding, essentially these tabs fold over these ones, and since this is the exact same height as this, if we don't trim it a little bit, the fold turns out to be not as nice as we want it to be. Sorry, I have tape all over my... That's part of the disaster that happened in my first try at doing this on camera. Okay, so I already got that one. I got this one here. Okay. And then finally, this one here. Okay, cool. Now, one more thing that's going to help us out. These bluish tabs, the ones right off of the dark side, so these ones right here, coming off of this angle, and by that, we basically want to cut from this corner to where we just trimmed the rectangle. So we're going to actually make this a diagonal cut. That's because this side is going to fold over here. And so once again, if we don't have that down just slightly, it just becomes obnoxious. So these are a diagonal cut, just like that. You see what I did there? And then over here, same thing. I'm going to just start from this rectangle that I trimmed down, and I'm going to go up to that printed corner like that. These are things that you can't really add that easily in Microsoft Word and a table. It just gets crazy. It's weird. The lines like jump out of place. It's bizarre, so I just gave up. And make a final trim. Oops, I did that one kind of weird. It's going to be hidden, but I want to make sure it's semi-reasonable. Like that. Okay, cool. So that's your reward for watching this video, is you got a little tip on how to make those folds better. Oh, what a pleasure. Okay, next up, we need to do all of our folds. Now, what I want to point out is, the reason I like to do all of my cuts first is I like to fold by turning this upside down, which seems counterintuitive. You might think you want to see the folds, but not necessarily. All of your cut lines are going to really guide where your folds are. And not only that, but when you're folding, let's do an example. So I'm going to fold this corner tab. When you're folding, if you do it this way, then you can look and wait and see when you have your printed line is going to show up. And so I usually just use my right hand, because I'm a lefty, I use my right hand to just pull the things forward until I see the printing, and then I use my left hand to give it a good crease. Sometimes you might need to push it and recrease it like I'm doing right now. Part of the trick of doing this on camera is I'm not sitting at a table doing this like you might be. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and fold the 4 corners down just because they're very easy to see, and that's not a bad place to start. Okay, so let's fold those tabs in and crease. Now I like to use my thumbnail or the butt of your scissors if that's not going to work out so nicely. So let's go ahead and do that like that. Okay. Next thing, let's fold. Let's fold all of these wings, the ones that we trimmed at a diagonal. So I'm just folding it over and creasing it when I see the line kind of pop up. I don't know how to describe it, but I can just barely see the line there, and I know it's time to crease. You see the line, crease it. All right, so that's that part. Next up, we're going to need to do 2 folds here, and again, your cuts are going to guide that. We need a fold here, and we need a fold here. So let's go ahead and pull this trapezoid shape down until you see the coloration. You might need to push it back up just a little bit and give it a crease. Then I'm going to take that whole side, bring it down where those wings are, and crease it. Let's do the same thing over here. Bring this down, then crease it. Bring this over, and then crease it, like that. Okay, now we've got a couple more folds. We've got 3 and 3. First fold's going to be really easy. It's where these tabs are, so use those tabs as your guide. Pull it over. You're going to see, with these longer folds, I like to make sure that the corners, that I get the corners, creased, and then I just go ahead and hit the middle part. This next one's a little bit tricky. I'm going to try to describe it better, but it's like in the middle here. And so the way that I like to visualize it is you have your wing up here. It should line up with the tab from the corner. And if you do that, you're going to get your printing in the exact right place. So I kind of push it and I lift the wing like that, almost like it's holding it in place, get the corner down, and then crease it all the way like that. Oh, sorry, I know that's kind of hard to see. And then we're going to pull that side one more time like this. Now again, if you're doing the top of the box, what you'll be seeing is the setup guides right here. All right, so let's do that same thing on this side. First fold is easy. It's just where these tabs are. And we're going to fold that in, get the corners, crease it down. Next part, this is the awkward one where I kind of use the wings and the tabs. I gotta label these things with names. Just like that. That's kind of what I'm doing visually. And I get that, make sure the corners are in place, or the edges, I don't know what you would call that, and crease it like that. And then we're gonna do that one more time, just at the bottom part of that side, like that. Okay, cool. Now every solid line has a crease mark, and they're all folded up this way. Now there are a couple of folds we're going to want to push the other way. So before we get started, let's just take this tab and fold it backwards like this. So the trapezoid, fold it backwards. Other trapezoid, fold it backwards. And same thing with the 4 corner tabs. Those are going to be easier if we fold those the opposite way from everything else. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so your paper is going to look a little something like this. Now this part is I just think it's so slick. What we're going to do is we're going to take the wings and bring them inward, and we're basically just going to follow those creases, wrapping this up and over those wings, and then we push it down like that. See how we did that there? Okay, so we just brought that over, up and over, and then you can see these are the wings that we folded back the opposite direction, and everything is just nice and snug and it looks great. So the way that I like to do this is down here at the base, you just want this to be as close to a 90-degree angle as you possibly can get it. And so I like to just take my right hand and pinch the base. That's what I mean, like just down right there at the base. Hold on. I'm going to pinch at the base, and then I'm going to just grab a small piece of tape and hit it right there, like that. If you want to do one in the middle, you can. It's it might be overkill, but I'm just going to go ahead and grab that, pinch at the base. Well, try to make sure that it's a do-it-yourself project, so it's going to get a little bit weird at times. We're going to go ahead and pinch at the base, make sure everything's nice and lined up like that. All right, so that's going to give you a nice, sturdy corner, just like that. I think one issue I'm fighting is I did a crappy fold right there. There we go. There, it's adjusted. We're good. Okay, let's do the same thing on this side. We're going to just take these wings, fold them in. I'm wrapping the sides up and over, pushing them in. Make sure the wings don't get too stuck underneath. If they do, you might need to add, like sometimes I'll put a roll of tape right here and make sure that it doesn't get awry. We're going to grab those, push it up and over. There we go. pinch the base, grab some tape. Again, I'm just taping on the normal white, so I'm using the invisible tape that is not so invisible. And we'll go ahead and do this one over here like that. Perfect. Now, if you wanted to leave these as a handle, you could, but mostly, the reason why I designed this the way I did is these are holding some heavier tiles. They're wooden tiles, and so I wanted to try to make sure everything had at least 2 layers. So that's why these tabs are here, but they're really ugly. So we're going to bring our trapezoid up and over to cover up those tabs. They're not pretty to look at. Now this side is just a little bit, it's just a little bit taller than the side of the box. So it might be a good idea to put some tape on that trapezoid like that. And then when you bring it up and over, it's possible the tape is going to go slightly on the bottom of the box. But that's okay because it'll hold it a little bit better. So same thing over here. Let's throw a little piece of tape on the trapezoid just like that. Wrap that up and over like that. And there is the base of our box like that. So here, I'm going to even show you that it works. I'm going to swap it out like that. So if you have the base, you can get your tiles in there, make the lid. It's the exact same template, and it'll go on just like that. And this is a perfect solution to holding those tiles and making it easy to use when you are playing the game, and setup guide there. All right, that was our first project, was to make that tile box. I'm going to go ahead and clean up this space and move on to the second project. All right, so here we are, part 2. We're going to go ahead and make this box here. Now this box, I'm going to actually use both kinds of tape, probably more this tape, because you can see there's going to be some tapings on printed stuff going on here. So you can see I did an okay job on these, but there's a little, I could have done maybe a little bit better. So we're going to see if we can fix that up just a little bit. You should have printed out, this is page 3 from the PDF, and there was outside stuff that we went ahead and trimmed out. Now, if you've ever made any of my vertical deck boxes, this is very similar. It uses the same template, but it's super short. This is like a super tiny deck box. Because of that, there's one extra weirdo cut that we're going to need to make, but I'll show you that in a second. Okay, now with all of my designs, I've got my dotted lines and my solid lines. Dotted lines are cut lines, solid lines are fold lines. So we're going to go ahead and start by just cutting all of these dotted lines. And for me, I find it's easiest. Do you see this thing right here? This, is going to be the lid of, it's the face of the lid. And so this is actually going to come out. So let's start there. I'm going to go ahead and trim this down, following the dotted lines. This is a do-it-yourself project. It does not need to be perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this thing cut out. And I'll set it to the side for now. We're going to need to do some more stuff with that in just a second. Next, I put some X's here because I don't want you to freak out. Yes, there are dotted lines here. We're going to be cutting out these 2 triangles here. So go ahead and just follow those dotted lines like this. Okay, get that cut out. Let's get this one cut out over here as well. Okay, now, if you wanted to, you could just cut on this dotted line and this dotted line, but I've done this enough times to know that sometimes if you just make those cuts that simple, that this becomes a little more obnoxious. And so what I actually like to do is I like to cut triangles around that line. So here, let me show you what I mean. Instead of just cutting straight down that line, I'm going to help myself out a little bit by cutting that in a triangle shape like that. Okay, so that's one advantage to watching these videos is, first of all, you get to hear my amazing voice. But second of all, you get these little tips that will make your life a little bit easier. So let's just trim that as a triangle like that. It doesn't matter how dramatic or how wide that triangle is. I'm just going to go ahead and do that on this side as well. So I'm basically taking those 3 rectangles and cutting them into trapezoid shapes. That's just going to help as we're folding things a little bit later. just like that. Okay? Next up, we've got the base of the box. We're going to go ahead and trim those. Just trim those lines like this. And the nice thing is with scissors, you're going to have control. Make sure you go right up to the corner. You want that cut to be as precise as possible. That's why I like to cut things before I fold them. It's because the cuts are a little bit more in your control, and they're going to make your folds a little bit easier. Sweet. Okay, so we have all of the cuts done, kind of. We're going to need to do some cuts on this, but I'm going to hold off on that just for a second. Let's get this thing folded up. So after I make the cut lines, you can see that all of the cut lines are kind of connected to, oh, I forgot to, yeah, there's essentially a solid line here, here, and here. I took off the solid line so it would look a little bit cleaner, but whatever. Okay, so basically all of those cut lines are guiding creases and folds that we need to make. So if you watch the first part, you already know this, but for all of my folds, I like to turn this printed side down. And I just use the cut marks to guide my folds. So maybe a really easy place to start are these base squares. Let's just bring those up. I'm going to use my right hand to pull them until I see a line, and then I crease it down. Fold it up, crease it. Fold it up, crease it. Now, of course, you could do this as one big fold, but I have just found myself being less precise that way than when I cut first and then fold second. So it's a little bit more work on your folds, but I think it ends up being a little bit nicer. Okay, so we've got all of those folds. Now let's open those up. Okay, next up, what we're gonna do is let's fold this one down right there, like that. Now this is part of why this box is a little bit tricky, but we're gonna take this other fold and fold it here. It should basically go like that. You kind of see what I did there? Okay. Now let's fold all of this stuff. Let's start by bringing these trapezoids down. See some printing, so I'm gonna fold it like that. Oh, sometimes you gotta push it back, so like maybe your first crease isn't good. That's okay, it's always fixable. All right, go like that. You might need to do this one twice. It just depends on how good I'm doing, basically, for you. All right, so we got those trapezoids. Now we're gonna fold the triangles. So we're just gonna bring that over and fold that like that, and bring this over just like this. Sweet. Okay, last of all, we need to fold all of these. So I'm basically just gonna start at this end, and I'm going to use my cuts to help guide where I need to go. This one's a little bit awkward because of that deep trapezoid that we cut out. But it goes something like that. And we're going to fold on the other side of that trapezoid until we see a hint of brown. There we go. And then I just keep pulling with my right hand and creasing with my left like this. Okay, and then I'm going to get this last one on this side. Like that. Okay, so we've got all of our fold marks that we need. That's going to make this next part a little bit easier. Now, I totally forgot. I'm going to grab a cutting board, and I'm going to grab a box cutter. Well, essentially what we need to do is we need just a small cut right here. And so however you want to do that, for me, it's easiest with a box cutter and a cutting board. All right, so here we go. We got that. Okay, so basically, in my brain, I'm imagining this divided into thirds, and we just want to cut a slit in the middle third. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab the box cutter or a razor or some, maybe just craft things. I don't own any craft things. This is as crafty as I get. And I'm just cutting that just so that there's a small gap like that. Okay, let's prepare the face of that lid. Here's what I mean by that. We have the top trapezoid up here. I want to turn this bottom part kind of like the same type of trapezoid as these ones. I'm just going to cut just a little bit here and a little bit here like that. Now, you could just cut this off. That's what I used to do. but I'm going to try to make the face of this trapezoid a little bit sturdier. And so what I'm going to do here is let's just go ahead and fold that. And in a minute, we're going to be taping it. I'm going to hold off on the tape for just a second, and you'll see why. But go ahead and fold that part back. Now, we're also going to want this thing kind of folded and kind of cutted. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut. Now, this is going to go into the slit. So, again, imagine that this is in thirds. What we're going to do is we're going to just trim the outer thirds like this. Just cut about a third of the way in and about a third of the way in like that. Oh my gosh, and don't cut your finger. What was I doing? Glad I did that on camera. Okay, so we have these small cuts here. You could fold this down right now if you want to. No big deal. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to take that trapezoid and we're going to fold it up like this. And we're going to insert that this way. So look at how I'm doing that. This needs to go into the slit. Is there a better word for that? I don't like that word. Okay, it's going to go in like that. We're going to flip it over. And we're going to open up those things we had folded in. And now that's going to be secure. But I'm going to add some tape on there. So what I'm going to do is I always look for, do you see how I'm kind of making an arrow here? It's like we have the pointer and then the butt of the arrow. I want to make sure that I can see a nice arrow there. And I guess I'm trying to make it dramatic, like you don't want it to be off like this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and slide that, make sure it looks like an arrow. And since we're taping on just normal white stuff, I'm going to grab that tape and we're just going to try to tape right there just to hold all of those pieces down and hold them together. So go ahead and throw that out just like this. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and finish making the lid of this box. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a piece of tape and sticky side down. I'm going to put some on this wing like that. Same thing over here. Go ahead and take some tape and put some like that. And what we're going to do is fold those forward. We're going to bring these up and kind of eyeball it. I'm just looking at my corners there. Ooh, I don't like that dotted line. That dotted line is kind of bothersome to me. So maybe I'm going to try my best to just trim the dotted part just so it looks a little bit cleaner. Like that. Yeah, that'll look a little bit better. Let's get rid of that dotted line too. No need to have dotted lines. Before I started publishing these designs, these were all solid lines and I just knew where to cut everything. So this didn't used to be an issue. But I put the dotted lines to help out the viewers. Like that. Okay. So what we're going to do is let's bring this in. And I'm kind of just watching to make sure that the corner, sorry, camera. I'm watching to make sure that that corner looks nice. Just like this. Have you noticed my hands are getting better? I've had severe allergies and it made my hands go insane this year. Okay, so one place where this design is a little bit weird is that this is too long. And that's just the result of the weirdo dimensions. So as I tape that down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm just going to trim this part like that. Okay? All right, next, same thing over here. We're going to bring this in, make sure the corner looks nice the way that I want it to, and I'm just using my thumb to tape that down. And then there's some excess here, so I'm going to fold this up, and we're just going to trim it off like that. Perfect. Okay, now we can just wrap this piece up and over, and it's just going to make that lid nice and sturdy, and that makes me happy. So I'm just going to add some tape down just like this. Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and make the box. So as you look at this side, you see one side has an icon printed and the other side does not. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab some rolls of tape. It doesn't matter which type of tape if by chance you're crazy like me and you have multiple, but I'm just going to grab some rolls of tape and stick it on here like this. And we're basically going to, oh, do you know what? I should have folded this before. Let's fold that back. Okay. We're going to go ahead and just wrap this stuff up around, and we're just going to watch for it and try to line up our sides and our edges as nicely as we can while the world is watching. There we go. I'm just trying to line that up, make sure it looks good. You could use the bottom tabs to make sure that those are lined up too. And I'm going to pinch that closed just like this. Sweet, this is coming together. Okay, let's get the base put together. So there's going to be 5 tabs on the base. You see we've doubled up over here, of course. The way I like to do this is take this first one on the doubler, push that down. Then you're going to have a colored bottom and a white bottom. Let's fold the white bottom up. Bring the 2 sides in, and then bring the colored side over, just like that. Now, I'm not going to use this tape because I'm taping on the printed colored side, but I'm basically just trying to hold everything into place, wrapping my arms around this tripod like that. Okay, so I'm going to get that base looking just the way I want it to in theory, and wrap that tape up and over like that. Last thing, we've got this here, I'm kind of trying to hide the fact that there are 2 pieces together like this. So we're just going to push that up and in. And I'm going to pinch the base, grab just a small piece of tape. In fact, sometimes it's easier to get the tape before you push that in. So if you just put the tape on like that, push it up and over, tape it down. And we've got a box ready to go. Now, one more tip is sometimes it's a little bit obnoxious to grab the tiles when it's like this. So what I'm going to do is show you how to make, this is very simple, but I just have this push out tab so that you can easily grab the tile from the other side. And that's why I have 2 scissors before you may be wondering. For some reason, these kitchen scissors seem to do the job a little bit better. But basically, we're just going to take that lid, push it down, and I kind of use the trapezoid as my guide. I just trim right down to the corners of the trapezoid like that. Okay, and then while it's still like this, we're going to fold it downward just to give it a crease. Then you're going to want to lift it up, because if you keep it folded, this won't open it. It kind of locks it in place. So pull it back up, open it, and then push it back, and then let's give that a nice crease like this. Boom. All right, so once you have that made, you can go ahead and get your tiles into there. I'm going to transfer this because I think that this one actually turned out better than the other one. There we go, and now that tile box is perfect and ready to go. Sometimes I get a little bit crazy. Like I'm noticing, I probably want a piece of tape right here. So with all of the tiles in place, sometimes I go around with the nicer tape and I tape all of the corners down because I'm kind of glaring it so you can see it, but when it's not glared, it's pretty invisible there. But yeah, make sure that all of your corners look the way that you want them to. In fact, one last place that I like to put tape is just on the face right here. You can see that could use some tape. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some tape right there. Be careful that you don't tape it closed. Wrap that tape over. And especially that side, that's what I noticed, is that side looked really bad. So I'm going to grab some tape. Oh, I did that tape a little bit too big. Like that. And I'm still a little nervous. I'm going to open it up, wrap it around. Yeah, there's a tiny corner of that tape. I can just push that in. Perfect. Project number 2. It is done. All right, there's that. I'm going to clean this up and we're going to go on to our player boxes. Okay, so welcome back. We're going to make this player box. This player box uses the same template as my Tiny Towns boxes. And so if by chance you watched that video, well, yeah, if you watched that video, this will be pretty easy. So once again, I've gone ahead and I've trimmed around the outside of that box. And I have some dotted lines here and some solid lines. I'm repeating myself because it's possible people did not make the other boxes. But what I'm going to do is, as you look at the design, solid lines and dotted lines are cuts, solid lines are folds. So I'm just going to grab some scissors here. And actually, before I do any of that, because I always forget, as we're folding things, if I'm going to make a couple of small trim cuts, it's going to make our folds a little bit easier. So before I even cut on the dotted lines, you're going to see some rectangles in the four corners. And those rectangles are connected to a colored side like this. So the long way. What I'm going to do is, I want to just trim, here, let me show you with the scissors. I'm going to basically just trim a small triangle out of that rectangle. I'm going to start down on the edge, and I'm going to cut up towards the printed side like that. I'm going to do that on all four corners. So on this one, I'm going to start at the corner and just cut down slightly. We're going to be wrapping around those sides, and I have just found if I don't make these trim lines, then my folds end up a little bit sloppy. All right, so starting here. Okay, so if you finish cutting, you're going to see it's just a little bit, it's not super rectangular, it's just a little more less rectangular. I don't know, whatever. Okay, so that's the shape. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut on the dotted lines. So I've got a dotted line here. I've got a dotted line here. Okay, we've got our four corners. And if at all possible, cut right on the dotted line, and maybe even like keep the dotted line away from the color as much as possible, because this is going to be visible, this is not. All right, then we've got a T-ish shape in the middle. So let's trim that. And make sure that you're watching carefully and that you're going all the way up to the intersection of the lines as much as possible. Okay, let's cut the other T out. And goes like that. And this one goes like this. Perfect. Okay, just a couple more trimming things that are going to make our folds easier. Do you see these rectangles right here? I'm going to just trim like a 45-degree angle like that on both sides of that rectangle, turning it into a trapezoid. Let's do that on the other edge too. Again, that's not absolutely necessary. I've just done this enough times to know that I feel like the folds end up a little bit nicer when we do that. One more really weird trimming thing, kind of similar to how we trimmed the top parts of these rectangles in the corners. Do you see these long rectangles here? There's two of them, one here and one here. I want to trim the bottom part. So let me show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, how do I do this? It's awkward on, hold on. I'm going to straddle the tripod. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut like this. You see what I'm doing? I'm going to start here and I'm going to this printed intersection. Oh, it is so awkward around this tripod. Thankfully, the whole point of this part is going to get hidden, so it doesn't matter if it's perfect. I'm going to just trim that out like that. And let's do the same thing on this side. Like that. Okay? Not absolutely necessary, like I said, but it's just going to make the folds a little bit easier. Whew. Okay, let's clean that out. Okay, next, we're going to go ahead and make all of our crease marks. So the way I like to do these crease marks is I like to fold this printed side down, and I'm going to use all of those cut lines to guide where I need to fold. So every cut is kind of going towards a fold line. So the easiest place to start is there are all of these, I call them wings. We're going to fold those over. I usually use my right hand and pull it until I see some printed line show up, and then I give it a crease. Now remember, we trimmed the top part of this rectangle, so that's supposed to be sloped like that. And then I trimmed the bottom part, so I'm going to kind of use the top. Ooh, I trimmed a little extra there. That's all right. Okay, go ahead and just pull that, crease it. Okay, let's do that all the way around for these tabs. If you cut a little too far, which I did, that's okay. Just push it back and crease it. Push it back. Ugh, everything's in my way. I can't even tell if I'm on camera. All right, pull it, crease it. Oh, that's not very good. Man, I did not do a good job with my cutting. I'm glad I said to do a good job with the cutting, but I did not. There we go. Okay. Then let's get the other side. There's 4 on both sides. Pull it, increase it. Pull it, increase it. Pull it, increase it. Nope. Like that. And even though cardstock, I mean, it's thicker, so it's not that forgiving, it is actually kind of forgiving with these things. If you have a bad fold, just pull or push and recrease it, and it's going to be fine. Okay, so I've folded the 8 wings. Now I'm going to get these 4 sides folded in like this. So just pull it, crease it, crease it, crease it. These ones are the really easy folds. Like that. Okay, so we've got all of those things folded. It almost looks like a car. Does it look like a car? No. Okay, now we have tons of fold lines we need to do all along here. So what I usually like to do is, once again, all of our cut marks are going to guide that. So we have cut marks here. I know there's a fold here for the trapezoid. So I just start at one end, and I start pulling it down, or pulling it, I guess it depends on how you look at it, pulling it to the right, and crease it. Then I have some new cut lines right here, so I know I need to fold it and crease it. Then my next cut lines are over here, so I'm going to flop that over, bring it down, crease it. Okay, now we're getting into kind of some weird territory. We've got 3 lines here. So you just got to start pulling it and looking for it, find a corner. Again, these wings here are kind of really going to guide that. Crease it. Then I got to fold like this. Keep pulling it until you see another crease line and hit it. Now this part's a little bit weird because it's kind of in the middle, but the way that I like to judge the position of this one is that this square and the fold for that wing kind of interlock to get this crease in the right spot. That's kind of a confusing thing to say. It's just how I see that the best. Okay, go ahead and fold it and crease it. And now we're kind of at the point where it's awkward to keep going this way, so let's flip it the other way. And I'm going to fold it and crease it like that. And then one last fold till we've got it all good to go. This is the hard part. The hard part is all of the creases. After that, after the cuts and creases, it's easy sauce. All right, so here's how this is going to work. There's the base of the box and the lid, and this is nearly symmetrical, so it's hard to tell. But you see how we have a long wing here and a short wing? The long wing is the base of the box, so that's where I'm going to start. So we're going to go ahead and fold this. Okay, here's how we're going to do this. Start on one side, the side with the long wing. We're going to start on the very top, if I'm holding it like this. And what we're going to do is we're just going to fold the sides up. We're going to bring this part in and wrap that up and over like this. I'm going to grab some tape and put it like that. Okay, cool. Now this next part is a little bit bizarre. It's tempting to fold these long wings and go up like this. That's not what we're going to do. We're actually going to bring this part up and fold the wings behind it like this. And then we're going to fold this thing backwards. So can you see what I've done there? I'm going to hold off and let you look at it. So I've got the box. I'm basically holding the wings out. Bring this part of the box up, fold the wings back, and then we're going to fold this down like this. So we're essentially going, the main paper is going up and over the wings. Okay? So we're going to fold that down like that, and then I'm going to bring it back. It's like I'm making well, it depends. Is that the letter N? It's an N if you look at it like this. Okay? But basically, what I'm going to do is fold it. Man, that's not very clear. Okay, so we've got our wings here. We're going to bring this down like this. And what I'm going to do is, I'm taping on printed stuff, so I like to use the really clear tape here. I'm going to just go ahead and hold that closed and add some tape like this and fold it down like that. And we now have the base We have the big base part of the box. Okay, this part is kind of a weird part. We have these small squares here. All I do with these small squares is I just fold them forward and tape them. I find that just adds a little bit of stability to the lid and makes it open and close a little bit nicer. I don't know how to explain it, but basically by having this folded edge here, when this thing goes to open and close, it just slides a little bit better. All right, so this is super simple. We've got these two wings here on the top. We're gonna bring these up. Bring that up and over. Check your corners before you tape it. Make sure they look the way you want it to. Maybe mine's a little too dotted liney, but that's okay. Throw on some tape just like that, and this is good to go. So again, during gameplay, you can use this like this as a full player aid, or you could even use it as a partial player aid if you just want some of the information, or you could just not use it for that at all. But I'm just gonna go ahead and take this. I've been storing the pieces in these geek boxes. I like to just put those tiles in first, and then you kind of just dump everything else in there. Shake it around if you need to. And this, again, you can kind of see this is gonna go just a little bit more smoothly that way than it would otherwise. And that is that box there. So with all of that in, the way that I have these things packed up and with these particular Plano boxes, I'm gonna talk about this bag in the setup video, but it doesn't matter. This is not, watch my setup video if you care. Okay, so this can go in here. Why don't we put this so it looks pretty for the camera? And then we could put these tiles right here. And then our player boxes are gonna stack just like this. One more. And boom, that just fits so freaking nicely into the box. Thank you guys for watching. Like I said before, if you thought this design was cool, please share it with others. I didn't say that before, but I have more designs if you check on the link in the description of this video. So if you find stuff that you like, tell other people. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy when people think I make cool things. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I will see you later. Goodbye.